Irene recently became a mom, and so you carried that into the rehearsals, and that must have been...
Very much so. It was a crazy few weeks. She was 5 weeks old when we started back working, so it was intense.
When I played Romeo with Megan Follows, she also had been exactly in that same situation. So it must be tough to discovering new love while you just have discovered this new child.
It was all so wonderful and so huge, everything that was happening, and people kept saying, you must be exhausted, and I was going, actually no, because everything is so fantastic and big that it's invigorating. So it was an exciting time.
I imagine.
To be sure.
Yeah. And you're playing Mercutio, which is quite a wild ride as well.
Yeah.
These are two enormous characters.
Yeah, very extroverted season for me. It's quite the ride. I'm having the time of my life.
Do you find them similar? Do you find them different?
I do find them similar, but at the same time, I think Petruchio is a bit more optimistic. A bit more hetero? Oh, I don't know about that. Possibly. Yeah, he's certainly more hetero, I think, than Mercutio. But Mercutio.
I don't know what she's saying about your Petruchio there, but
no, it's a. Yeah, I think he's a bit more of an optimist than Mercutio.
Petruchio's more of an optimist than Mercutio.
I think so. I could be completely wrong, but that's how I feel.
Okay, now, guys. So this is your question: to what Shakespearean roles would you love to play in the years ahead?
I met a wonderful man at the end of the show today, an older gentleman. I don't know his name. If you're out there, write me. But he came over and said, I'd love to see you play the woman in the Scottish play, because you have an edge. And I thought, that would be fun to do, which I've done many years ago, but it'd be fun to do that again. I think she's pretty extraordinary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rossillion and As You Like It, because I've never played her, so those are my sort of two.
Yeah, those are good choices.
Yeah, I like those.
I'd like to play Hamlet. Of course, I think every young actor wants to play Hamlet at some point. And a few others that I'm probably too old for now.
No.
I'd love to play Henry V. I'd love to play Henry V.
I don't think you're too old for Henry V.
No?
No.
I think it's a lovely role. I love that role. Yeah. And the Scottish King. Everybody wants to play the Scottish King. It's way too much fun.
Isn't it a bit? Well, let's talk about that. I mean, the thing about the Scottish couple is that, boy, they get on like a house on fire.
Yeah.
They're in love.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the few examples in Shakespeare of a couple that's really in love.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning. And a married couple, because we often see the young people get together and at the end of the play they go to be married, and we often wonder how it works out, right? And sometimes in a play like All's Well That Ends Well, you legitimately wonder how it's going to work out because they're coming from different points of view. Yeah. But that play is so dark. What would make you want to visit that world?
I think that darkness, we don't get to go there very much.
We hope.
And that relationship, I think, is an extraordinary one. I think it's a love story. It's a tragic one, but I think they love each other so much that they would do.
And
they do outrageous things for each other. But I think it's extraordinary what they do, and the journey that they go on, and what it leads to. It's just amazing. Irene,
you had a very extensive resume and career that wasn't here at the festival. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and where you trained and the kinds of your favorite parts in the years leading up to your coming to the festival?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually grew up in a very small town in Labrador, and then studied theatre at Dalhousie University. Worked there for about 9 years, and got to do a lot of great Shakespeare with a company called Shakespeare by the Sea that was a new, really exciting outdoor Shakespeare company, and got to do all sorts of fabulous things like Olivia in Twelfth Night and Elizabeth and Richard III and a bunch of other stuff. And then moved to Toronto in the late 90s and started working on more modern new plays, new Canadian works and older Canadian works from George Walker's that were great. And then got to do some nice stuff across the country as well.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that you had quite so much Shakespeare early on. Like, the body of your work that I've known about and been more familiar with it are the new work and also the regional work that you've done. Yeah. So how does a person from a small town in Labrador come to love Shakespeare so much? Is something you discovered later? Something you always knew from when time you were a kid?
No, I read a lot as a kid, and just loved drama and literature all of my life. And so when I got to high school and started working on Shakespeare, I quite loved it. And the very first thing I ever saw was Orson Welles' Knackers, and that was quite inspiring.
Right. Yeah, obviously it made a lasting impression.
Yeah.
Now, okay, bit of a tough question. We're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes here. You're a month into the run. You still have another 3 or 4 months, and you started rehearsals in January. Any surprises? Anything new that it's dropping in that's changing and evolving as you go about this run? Is there anything that's...
I think certainly. I was talking to Ben Carlson actually about this today, and I think for me getting to know Irene over this process, I think that sort of stage chemistry grows and evolves, and I, sometimes, I feel very fortunate to be working with Irene, because I think that has, if that's not there,
right,
then you're up the creek without a paddle. Yeah. So I think, and it's been directed sort of with breadth, and so I think the whole cast feels that way. We feel as an ensemble piece that it does have room to grow. And who knows, by the end of the season, it could be like some sort of tragedy. Who knows what'll happen with it? But yeah, it's...
So I'm hearing that you've developed into a kind of team, in a way.
Yeah.
As people. And for you, Irene?
I think, the language is so rich that I keep on discovering things, little things. I go, oh, I said that word, back in Act 1, and now here I am saying it again. Just little things that pop up like that all the time. Definitely. And still lots of stuff that I'm trying to get right for myself. So every time out is, is still work. It's I'm not sitting back in it just yet.
And of course the audiences change over the course of the summer here at the festival. You have the student audiences very early on, and as time goes on, we find that we have more and more people who come from further afield, and some of them are their most dedicated Shakespeare audiences who start to be able to come now that school's over and they can drive the 8 hours to come and see this production, and they bring with them a wealth of knowledge and experience. So I found that as the season goes on, we also have a deepening in the response from the audiences themselves, which helps the plays as time goes on.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people who've said that they cry at the end of this play, which I find very interesting and satisfying, that they're moved by it and affected by it, and they laugh a lot throughout. But I think there's a lot to be gained from sitting there and taking this in and just going with this crazy journey that we're on.
Now, we are going to have an outdoor performance coming up called Shakespeare's Universe, and Shakespeare's Universe is going to focus on what it must have been like to be a woman in Shakespeare's time, and how that's manifested in the plays, and with a particular kind of focus on the characters in these plays. Are you looking forward to seeing that? Or?
Oh, definitely.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And it's Peter Hinton, of course, who's working on that as well, so you can get out and get sneak previews, and we're going to have that performance take place in between productions, in between performances, especially around the Shakespeare. So it takes place at 11:30 and at 5:30 on days when you'll be able to then see Shakespeare's Universe outdoors for about 75 minutes, and then come and see Irene and Evan do The Taming of the Shrew. All right, I want to thank you both very much for doing this. It's been fascinating. Every time we do this, I learn more and more about your world and as you as people. So thank you for doing this.
Fabulous. Thanks.
Now next week at 6:30 on Wednesday again, we're going to look at All's Well That Ends Well. And we're privileged next week to have with us Tom Rooney, who plays Lavash, and also Stephen Ouimet, who plays the Lord Lafew in that very beautiful and difficult Shakespearean comedy. So why don't you come back next week? You can find out why it's beautiful, why it's difficult, and more about Tom and Stephen. Thank you very much for joining us today.